And welcome to another edition of Defo on 5. Jeff DeForest and Mike Lubitz. Very happy to be with you on this fine Wednesday. And it is D-Day in many ways. Luby, I don't know how many times you've seen the movie The Usual Suspects. It's one of those movies that, even though I've seen it 1,000 times, I still will click on a couple of scenes if I see it pop up on the screen. I might flip back to it. You have almost all of the lines memorized, but I think the scene that's appropriate to reference from that movie today is the one where when the Hungarian that got blown up on the boat and he's in the hospital, and the cop comes over that's working with Chaz Palminteri, and he's going to interrogate the guy, and all of a sudden the guy's right eyeball, the one eyeball that's visible, comes bulging out of his head. His face turns even a darker or more crimson shade of red, and he starts screaming, "Kaiser Sose! Kaiser Sose!" And I think that's what's happening around town every time you mention the name Sergei Bobrovsky. Is that not true? Has he become the Kaiser Sose of pucks, Sergei Bobrovsky? Because as soon as you think about Bobrovsky in the pipes, I don't know why. I guess, out of habit and maybe out of, the fact that it's, worked out this way, unfortunately. You're thinking, we are going to get a really lousy game from our goaltender. Is it possible to still go to Boston and beat the Bruins, who are looking to close out their series and continue their quest of excellence this year? Which this is kind of interesting, Libby, that no President's Cup winner, no team that has won the President's Cup in the NHL, and that's having the best record during the regular season, which Boston did far and away, set the record all time for wins and points in a regular season since 2012-13. No President's Cup winner has won the Stanley Cup.
Oh, has actually won it. Yeah,
How
exactly.
about that? Actually gone on to win the cup.
Exactly.
Now they've won series, which it looks like. I mean, by all rights, think about this. A couple of weeks ago, we would have never said this. So we thought, actually, not even as long ago as a week ago, when the Panthers left Boston with a victory and they had the split. They're out of there 1-1. They have 2 games at home coming up. You're thinking at the worst they're going to end up 2-2. I don't know that there was anybody that thought that this was a certainty that they were going to lose tonight in their game 5 against the Boston Bruins and be eliminated. And if you think about that, look what's happened with this franchise. Anytime they do anything, it turns out to be a useless and a move that only leads to further stagnation in sub-mediocrity. That's not a good place to be, is it? Stagnation in sub-mediocrity. Because if you think about it, this is yet another brief stay in the postseason, which these postseason efforts have been pretty sporadic during the history of the franchise. You have long gaps where they didn't even make the postseason. And really, no great prior success. Their best success came in the 95-96 season. And the last time I checked, that was 28 years ago. They did have a nice run there in one postseason. Then, remember when we started going to some games, we were glomming freebie tickets, Luby? We ended up in a nosebleed. What did they do there? Did they go to the conference finals? I don't know that they went that far. They lost to the Devils in a tough. Oh, in the first round. Okay.
They took the Devils to like 6 or 7, and like the toughest series Devils played until they got to, I guess, the Cup. I guess they went to the Cup.
Right. And we used the usual rationale after that. Well, you know what? We lost to the eventual Stanley Cup champion.
Yeah, or something like that, yeah.
Which we always do. The rare times that the Panthers make the playoffs. I don't want to diminish, what the team did in, finishing out the season on a strong note. But let's face it, man, it wasn't a great year for the Florida Panthers all the way around, in spite of the brilliance of Matt Tkachuk and the emergence of Verhaeghe and maybe a couple of other players. The problem all year long has been between the pipes. So what do you do tonight? Have they announced a starter against the Boston Bruins? Closeout game for the Bruins. You have to figure that the Bruins really, were kicking themselves after they lost game 2. Came out and thoroughly dominated a very, very unorganized Panther team in games 3 and 4. Those games weren't really close, even though the 4-2 score made it look like the Panthers were in that game. They were not. They were down 4-0. And then they get annihilated in game 4. So sitting on a precipice of what we thought might be a really good series, after 2 games, we realize that, it is time to just go Don Meredith, right? The party's over. Is there anybody out there that assumes that the Panthers are going to win this game tonight? Certainly the odds makers are not a big fan of that notion.
No way. Are you kidding me? How can anyone think that watching the 2 games at home? To me, And I know he struggled, but Alex Lyon struggle are frustrating. Bobrovsky's struggles are sickening. Like, I'd rather see
Yeah, I mean,
Lyon
he
out
he
there
he
go
just
fight.
looks like, they threw somebody in from out of the stands in there, right? "Hey, grab a fat guy and put some pads on him. See if you can stop a couple of pucks."
Yes, that's
It
exactly
doesn't
what.
seem to be working too well against the Boston Bruins. Boston, at least a better city to be in than Milwaukee, where the Miami Heat will play tonight. And the Miami Heat in a commanding position, although I don't know that I've ever seen a game where it was almost universal. I think it is universal. There's not a single person in the world that believes, I don't even know if Spolster thinks, that the Heat are going to win tonight. The Heat going in as heavy underdogs are now
Oh,
10 and a hook underdogs to the Milwaukee Bucks, which is kind of interesting because, look, they just beat them. Now, naturally, they were at home, so maybe they had a little bit of an edge. And we saw what happened, a startling finish last night in that Atlanta Boston game. I don't know if you caught any of that, Luby.
I watched to the end. It was tremendous.
Unbelievable. Yeah, no, that was a great finish, especially since you were thinking, all right, Atlanta got in there. They beat the Heat, so they moved down to the 8th spot to number 7. They take on the number 2 Boston Celtics, who a lot of people thought were just as good, if not better, than the Milwaukee Bucks, and more dangerous opponent, even in the first round, which may prove out to be the case. The Celtics handle their business very easily after losing Game 3 in Atlanta. They come right back and set themselves up to close it out in Boston last night. And sure enough, I mean, did that score looks familiar to you? At one point, with about 9 minutes to go, it was 102-89 Celtics,
Yep.
which was the exact score that Milwaukee was leading the Miami Heat by with about 6 minutes to go. And they also trailed by 13 with 6 minutes to go. The Atlanta Hawks. There was no reason to believe that the Hawks were going to mount any kind of a charge in this game. Naturally, I flip away, come back, and the Hawks are leading with about 3 minutes to go. And I'm thinking, wow, how on earth did that happen? Holy Ime Udoka, man, who got a job, by the way, with the Houston Rockets now. But Celtics appeared to be sailing to the closeout game. They had Bob Kraft had front row seats, and there was a little Asian woman sitting in his lap. Did you see that? She was from the spa in Jupiter. He had brought her to the game, but he's sitting there in the front row. Everybody's ready to celebrate. And the next thing you know, after teetering back and forth, and it looked like the Celtics were going to find a way to pull this thing out, even though the Hawks had pressured them. And they're up, 1 point with about 8 seconds to go, 7 seconds and change. And Trey Young comes down the court and shoots literally from the Coke machine. I mean, there was a bottle of Pepsi that came out of there. And he makes it like a 40-footer. He drains it. The Hawks go up 2 with 1.8 seconds to go in the game, and they manage to hang on and win that game. They send it back to Atlanta for a game 6 in what seemed to be about as impossible a result as you could ever imagine. And we're looking at maybe that same sort of thing happening with the Miami Heat tonight, because there isn't a soul in the universe that expects the Heat to win this game against the Milwaukee Bucks, and the heavy favoritism of the Bucks probably well deserved. In that you can't imagine that they're going to come out anything but on fire in this game, determined not to go out in an embarrassing fashion. And this is still a remaining and plaguing question, that even with a commanding 3-1 lead as a number 8 seed against the best team in the Eastern Conference, which many people thought was the best team in basketball, even with this commanding 3-1 lead, do the Heat still go on and win the series? Assumption being that they lose this ball game tonight, that they have everything riding on Game 6 at their own building, which we don't know the name of, and may never know the name of. I don't even know that I care to learn the name. We still are thinking about the Bankman Fraud Center. And they've had some tough times with that, right? I mean, for a long time, they had American Airlines there. American Airlines, all their engines are catching fire now. And then, they were going to name it after some porn site. I guess that got shut down. They ended up with this crypto money, which turned out to be, the same system that was being exploited by Bankman Fraud. And now they have some nondescript sponsor on the building. So I don't think there's any disgrace in not knowing what it is. But the Heat obviously a lot safer at home in Game 6 than they appear to be in Game 5 tonight in the NBA, which is also providing some real fireworks, for the playoffs that are taking place so far. Just unbelievable. Last night, that was a great game. Atlanta, you could have never in a million years thought that Atlanta was going to find a way to pull that thing out when they trailed by 13 with 6 minutes to go. Similar situation as the Heat. You had a couple of closeouts last night. The Denver Nuggets closing out Minnesota. But it was not easy. Minnesota gave them everything that they could possibly handle, anything that they could want in that game. The officiating was not exactly the most balanced that I've seen. It did seem to me like Minnesota was getting the short end of it as the Denver Nuggets prevailed in the game, 112 to 109. So they close that out and win that series by a 4-1 margin. And then also the Phoenix Suns, which this was not a great indicator for all those that thought that the acquisition of Kevin Durant was going to be an automatic gift for the Suns to win the championship. They still may. I mean, they're sitting there. They're in the 4-5 series, so they're going to have to take on the Nuggets in the next round. That's been established, and the rest of the West is left to battle as L.A. Leads the Memphis Grizzlies 3 games. Is it 3-1? L.A. and the Grizzlies, I believe so. And so L.A. with a commanding lead in that series and a good chance to move on as a play-in team. And if they do prevail in that series, they take on the winner of Golden State Sacramento. And the Golden State Sacramento series, you're unfortunately looking at the Sacramento Kings, who were a pretty good Cinderella story this year after being out of the playoffs since 2006. I think the last time they were in the playoffs was when Weber called that timeout. I mean, it's been a long, long time for Sacramento and just a shithole of a town. So, not a whole lot to get excited about. Their fan base has come out and really galvanized itself behind the Sacramento Kings. They would like nothing better being, I guess, Sacramento, certainly a redheaded stepchild of a California city compared to San Francisco. San Francisco enjoys all the glamour, has the glamour players, and they unfortunately are going to have to go probably without De'Aaron Fox, who was the clutch player of the year and clearly the catalyst behind a lot of the success Sacramento has had. And he may be out for tonight's game against Golden State. If that's the case, you have to think that Golden State has a considerable edge, even though Golden State has been horrendous on the road. Their road trips have been, similar to some that I used to have with one of my ex-wives, where there was never a time that one of us didn't think about just going back home in the middle of the trip. Very upsetting. But Golden State now appears to be in a pretty good spot there in that series. And there you have a possibility of the Lakers taking on a very vulnerable Golden State team and/or battling against the Sacramento Kings, who now seem like they're in a position where they're going to be hard pressed to win the series. There you are, Libby. You came back. How are you? You okay? You disappeared there for a while.
The internet flamed out, but we're here.
Oh
Hello.
yeah, we were still going. I just kept it going there.
You're going. Good
Even
job.
in your absence, as I'm looking at the screen here and saying, "Well, where the hell did he go?"
You did it.
Unbelievable. All right, so you're with everybody else, right? Panthers go down tonight, no chance. Heat go down tonight, no chance.
I'd give the Heat a chance. I would bet against them. I don't like that spread. I think that's a lot of points for a team that has a chance to move on and has Jimmy Butler on their team. We've seen the Heat do this all year. I think this is where you'd love to end it. I don't see that happening. I see it coming back to Miami for Game 6. I would give the Panthers no chance. The Panthers are a total disaster. I don't know what the hell happened down here, but I've lost all faith in them. The Heat, Butler's not getting the help I'd like him to get, but he's getting just enough help, at least right now. We'll see what happens.
It would be impossible to conceive him doing what he did and duplicating it again. Look, it was a career high, so he had never done that before. I can't imagine him having the same kind of game. And think about this. I mean, even with that game by Jimmy Butler, 56 points on 19 of 28 shooting, 15 of 17 from the line, 9 boards in the ball game. Even with that, it came down to the final seconds before the Heat eventually pulled away and won that game by what, 5 points, 119, 114. Milwaukee still had an excellent chance to win that game in spite of the brilliance of Jimmy Butler.
Yes.
So, you would have to think that they would be heavily favored at home in this one. A couple of, NHL developments last night also, as the Islanders stayed alive in their series. They went to Carolina and won that game. They forced a Game 6, beating Carolina 3-2. Dallas got an early 5-minute power play. They scored on that, then came back on another power play a little later on in the first period. They went on a cruise over Minnesota 4-0. So the favorite now up 3-2 in that series, as is the case with Carolina up 3-2 on the Islanders. And Edmonton now up 3-2 on the LA Kings. I didn't realize that those two teams had battled last year. I don't know what round of the playoffs it was, but they had played 7 tough games last year. The LA Kings in Edmonton, pretty good matchup. Edmonton just went wild last night offensively and wins at 6-3. And their power play has been so effective. I think they're clicking on like 70% of their power plays so far in the
Jeez.
series. Yeah,
Wow.
I mean they're tough to stop, man. They have a few guys besides McDavid that are really lighting it up. So Edmonton, who I would have thought would have been fairly heavily favored in that series, now up 3-2, going back to Los Angeles for a game six, and that's what we'll have to follow. The reason I bring these other games up is because our team is going to be out of it after tonight. Sorry, Five Reasons Sports Network fans,
Yeah.
but it's not looking good. And unfortunately, especially in this town, when the local team is out of it, interest almost completely fizzles in whatever postseason it happens to be. Less so in the NBA than the NHL, but certainly the NHL disappears from the spotlight when the Panthers are not involved, and I don't assume they're going to be involved any further than tonight. Holy Paul Maurice, what am I saying? It's blasphemy. Aaron Rodgers is a Jet. I have a betting theory here. I'm going to bet against the New York Jets in at least the first four games of the regular season. Do you not believe that the Jets will be inflatedly favored
Yes.
in whatever game, even if they were the underdog? They're not going to be getting as many points as they probably should because everybody thinks they're going to win the Super Bowl now that they have Aaron Rodgers. This is almost in line with the theory of betting against a defending Super Bowl champion, in this case, Kansas City, in every game the following season against the spread, which I'm not sure if that theory is held up in recent years. I used to follow it. Haven't followed it as closely, in the last, I say, 5, 6 years as I used to. But betting against Kansas City was a very healthy proposition last year anyway. Because of Mahomes, they're always inflated. I believe that Rodgers is going to inflate these New York Jet spreads to the point where certainly on opening week, you want to pile every dime you have against the New York Jets, whatever the spread happens to be. I don't care who they're playing, not sure who they open up with, but don't you think that that's going to be the case? Everybody's going to be sending it in on the Jets this year.
Picking him to win the Super Bowl. I'm like, what?
Super Bowl, yeah. Imagine.
We don't know who Rodgers is. I didn't get it. Well, they were really close to the playoffs without a competent QB. So now they have a great QB. First of all,
Yeah.
we don't know if he's great. We don't. And the roster's not as good. Like, they have a good team. They have Garrett Wilson. They have nice pieces. Their defense wasn't the greatest in the league. Like, people are they're jumping because Sauce Gardner was good and Quinton Williams is good, to that the entire defense is the Ravens of 2000. It's like,
Yeah.
you guys are going ahead of yourself now. Like, no one said that. We said for a Jets team that was supposed to win 4 games, that you could have seen them in the playoffs. That was a nice year for them. You had Aaron Rodgers. They should contend for the division. I'm not fighting any of that. But the Super Bowl contender, watch out, Chiefs.
Yeah.
Okay.
They went 7-10, didn't they? Wasn't that their final record?
Yes, they
And
were.
not exactly anything illustrious there. And they went, were they 7-4 and they lost their last 6? No. Is that right?
I think they had 6 or 7 wins. They were in a really good spot. They were in the play. Remember, I think, outseeded the Dolphins for a second there. And then their quarterback play got to them, and I get it. But if your defense was that elite, you can win on just defense. So that's what I'm saying. Like, they have a good defense. People are talking about their defense like it's the greatest in the NFL right now. It's not. I don't even know if it's top 3 right now. So relax. Like, let's see Aaron Rodgers go deal with that media with all of his fucking craziness before we crown him as Super Bowl.
He'll be sulking by week 3.
It's like, come on.
Can you imagine? He'll be destroyed. This guy that seems to have not a fragile psyche so much, but just a weird outlook on things. I mean, and I don't know that the media single-handedly is responsible for the success or demise of any ball club. I don't believe that to be the case. But they could easily get under. You could see them getting under Rodgers' skin. That's for sure. Although he seems to be aloof and indifferent to most of his stuff. I believe it fell apart, and I will go to my grave thinking this. When Matt LaFleur opted to kick that field goal in the NFC title game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, instead of allowing Rodgers to give it one shot there to try and get them back into the game on that 4th down play. I don't think it had that much to do with, I mean, they sure, when they drafted the quarterback, what was it, Jordan Love? Is that the guy?
Jordan Love, not Trey Lance, Jordan Love.
Yeah. When they drafted this guy, was it insulting to Rodgers? Maybe. Did he really need to be consulted on that? He was still going to be the starting quarterback. It wasn't like they said, "Hey, we're drafting a quarterback and he's going to have your job." Sat the bench just like Rodgers did for 4 years behind Brett Favre. and probably was going to sit there for as long as it was that Rodgers wanted to be a Green Bay Packer. But after all of the stuff that we went through last year with Rodgers, right, where he couldn't decide what the hell he was going to do. Remember when, too? I mean, this happened before with Brett Favre, where Rachel Nichols was hiding under his car, waiting for him to come out of the house so that they could get, a question. Hey, Brett, you going to be playing again? You retiring? What are you doing? And it was that way with Rodgers. He picked up the same level of drama. How does that always emanate from Green Bay? All of that stuff, right? I mean, who gives a? Would you even know Green Bay was on the map if they didn't have a football team?
Not for
And it's
football.
weird they have one, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Milwaukee, maybe Green Bay, Wisconsin. Get the hell out of here. Anyway, I'm betting against the Jets in every game this year. In fact, never mind just the first few games. I'm betting against them in every game this year against the point spread. I think the point spread is going to be radically inflated. Marlins losers last night, 7-4. They had a little rally going in the eighth inning. Hard hit ball turns into a double play. That was it. Give up a couple of runs in the bottom of the eighth, and they were done. So they're starting to lose every day. And the Derby is only 10 days away. How about that? How about that, Louie? I mean, that's going to be one great betting opportunity. If Forte doesn't run his race, which I'm going to use him, and yet I'm going to try and hope that he doesn't hit the board. That's nothing against Vinny Viola, who owns a piece. I mean, imagine this. Vinny Viola gets into the horse racing game a few years ago. People go their whole lives. They spend 100 years in horse racing. They never sniff a Kentucky Derby win. This guy might be on to his second one in a short period of time.
That's crazy.
Unbelievable, right? I mean, what kind of luck does this guy have? Does he need luck? He's got more money than God. Incredible.
Well, it evens out with the Panthers.
You think that brings him down? I don't know.
It evens out.
I feel pretty good about myself. Yeah. Sergei Bobrovsky, man. It's the same thing as saying Kaiser Sose
Exactly.
around town. All right. Now, we'll see you next time on Defo on 5, and we'll see you in a couple of minutes coming up here after we finish putting this thing together on the Defo Show on South Florida Live. That's going to be a lot of fun. And for Mike Luby Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. Thanks so much for tuning in. See you next time on Defo on 5.